Meeting to order. Will everybody stand with me to say the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What happened there? See, you were out of tune.
That was funny. It's funny.
Roll with it. She throws me off back here.
Cheryl, will you do roll, please?
She throws me off back here.
Present.
Here.
Present.
Here.
Here. Madam Mayor, may I make a motion to excuse Councilmember Owen?
All in favor? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
I am looking for approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
All right. So we have a motion by Councilmember Kelly and seconded by Councilmember DeYoung to accept the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Was that you? Was that you, Councilman Couch? I need
Yes,
to
ma'am.
separate you two because I have no idea who's talking to me down there. Thank you.
This is your faces.
Yeah.
Voices.
I actually need this more V-shape so I can see who's talking to me.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking for approval of the consent agenda, 1 through 3.
I move that we accept the consent agenda, items number 1, 2, and 3.
Second. All right. So we have a motion by Councilwoman Denley and seconded by Councilwoman Cornegay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have tonight a couple of guests. The first one is Lynn Murphy from Puget Sound Energy. Hi, Lynn.
Good evening, Council. Lynn Murphy with Puget Sound Energy. How are y'all doing tonight? Very, very quick through the first part, so thank you very much for getting me up here so quickly. I'm here tonight to give you an update and a presentation on our home energy assessment that we're going to be bringing to Sedro-Woolley here next week. My colleague, Walt Blackford, has worked with city staff and has asked me to come and present to you all tonight. So just real quickly, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of PSC. We have a little over 1 million electric customers. We have about 3,000 employees. We're headquartered in Bellevue. Of course, we serve all of Skagit County, Whatcom County, and Whidbey Island. And we also have natural gas service down in Snohomish County. And as you go further down, we have very mixed services between electric and natural gas. Our PSC resources are our energy resources, where we actually get our electricity. We're about a third coal, a third hydro, and a third mix of natural gas, wind, and solar. And what this basically shows is we produce from our own owned utility plants about 46% of that power portfolio. And if you look at the map there, you can kind of get a mixture of, or see a mixture of where our resources are coming from across the state. There are hydro plants. Obviously, we own the Baker River Hydro Project up in Concrete, but there's other hydro projects across the state that we have contracts with where we receive power. And it's very similar with other generation resources across the state. We are operated or regulated by a utility, the UTC, the Washington State Utilities and Transportation Commission. So what we basically are is an investor-owned regulated utility. What that means is that the utility comes in and says, PSC, this is how you're going to operate. We provide the plan and they approve it. We are an economic regulated utility and not an environmental utility. So what that means is that the UTC can come in and say, you must provide the least cost resources for your customers. So they look primarily at the cost of that resource and not the environmental impact. And I'll get a little bit more into why that's important to know. So understanding that the UTC, or our regulator, says that we need to provide our least cost, we also are listening to our customers and understand that they want us to reduce our carbon footprint. And so what we've done is we've come together and started a carbon reduction campaign, our Together campaign, which basically says that we're going to reduce our carbon footprint 50% by the year 2040. And these are the first 3 ways we're going to do that. First is going to be our transition away from coal. So we're going to, by the early 2030s, we will be completely coal-free. We're also going to invest in some new products and services, mostly new renewable energy technologies and resources. And we're also going to help the state with increasing their electric vehicle investments on the road. So we're going to help our customers understand what kind of electric vehicle they want and provide charging stations across the state. That plan was submitted to the UTC about a week ago, and we're hoping to hear a little bit more in about a month and be able to provide some more information on what that looks like to our constituents shortly. And then the last piece to our carbon reduction campaign is a regulatory piece. So as I mentioned before, the UTC says that we have to provide the least cost resource for our customers, and they don't necessarily take into account the environmental impact. And so this is where the regulation piece comes in, where we're going to go back next session and ask our regulators, or ask legislators to help us have a balanced mixture of least cost resources, but also what are the carbon impacts to our customers as well, because that's what we're hearing our customers want us to do. In addition to that, as I mentioned, the electric vehicle piece, there's some legislation that needs to be passed so that we can increase the amount of electric vehicles on the road. It's a PSC goal, but it's also a state goal as well. And in addition to that goal, there's also some goals in there for municipalities increasing their electric vehicles from a fleet standpoint. So that's our Together campaign, how we're going to reduce. Now, not all of our customers are able to engage in some of these resources, and that's where the home energy assessment comes in. So before we get to the home energy assessment, I had one more slide. There are some other ways that that customers can participate. We have our Solar Choice program, where if customers want to invest a little bit of money, maybe $5 a month, they can get a little bit of solar-generated electricity through our portfolio. You can do the green power, which is a mixture of renewable energy, not just solar, but wind, solar, and maybe some other resources. And then we have our Green Direct program, which is primarily for our larger businesses and our municipalities that utilize or use over 1 million kilowatt hours in an annual period. And then the last one there is purchasing bulk REC purchases, or renewable energy credits. Again, this is something that large businesses and municipalities are able to do, and these are some ways in which our customers can invest in that renewable energy and help us with the reduction in carbon footprint.
So do I understand you correctly that the customers can actually choose to purchase this?
Absolutely. Yep. So if you were to go onto our website, psc.com/renewable energy, you would have the availability to look at all these options. Either sign up as a residential customer, sign up as a business customer, and we can even come back and talk with you all about the Green Direct program.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the last piece there is our customer generation, where our customers actually can put the solar panels or windmill or any other renewable generating product or generation plant, if you will, and become a net metered customer. We have 2 here in Skagit County. There are dairy digesters out in West Mount Vernon. We have also one up in Linden, where it's a dairy digester. It produces renewable green gas from animal waste. And then we also have the typical, put the solar panels on your home, and we will pay the retail cost to you for the power that you're generating. All right, so those are some ways that our customers can get involved, and one of the easiest ways is the home energy assessment, which is why I'm here today. And so what is a home energy assessment? So basically what this is we go around to our customers in identified communities and let them know that we can come in and evaluate their space heaters, their insulation, light bulbs, water usage, those types of things, and provide them up to 30 free LED light bulbs, provide them resources on how they can get some reduced cost insulation or even reduced cost more efficient heaters or home energy, home heating products. So why did we choose Sedro-Woolley? Sedro-Woolley, last year we were here and did this basically the same program for our small businesses. So we called that our Small Business Direct Install. We worked with the chambers and businesses in the downtown core on replacing light bulbs and going through their heating systems to help them identify ways in which they could save energy. And so we came back the second time recognizing that there was a very large residential customer base that could benefit from this particular program. We typically are looking for homes that are older than 1990 so they can reap some of those benefits from those large amounts of energy reducing impacts. And we do a lot of marketing with our customers. So we choose one specific area in Sedro-Woolley, and we stick to that particular neighborhood as far as door knocking and going to each individual customer's home and offering this particular assessment. That said, every single Sedro-Woolley resident will receive a postcard with the ability to sign up and have a home energy assessment. So everybody in Sedro-Woolley, in the city of Sedro-Woolley, will be touched by this program in one way or another. We are going to be out in Sedro-Woolley for 3 days, Monday, July 16th, July 23rd, and the 30th. Walking the southeast portion of town there, that's highlighted in blue. There's a little over 1,000 homes, 1,013 homes that we're going to door knock. You can either have a same-day home energy assessment, or you can make an appointment for within the week, anywhere from that day to 5 days out if you wanted to have them come back and do it. Or we'll put door hangers on the doors if we don't catch anybody at home. Yes?
Have to be within that highlighted area to receive the survey?
No, not at all. Those are just the ones that we're going to go to the door and we're going to knock and say this is available to you. Most people, if you're anything like me, you might get a postcard and say, oh, that's great, and I'll get to it, and it gets put aside. But if somebody comes to the door and offers it to you and says, I'm ready to make the appointment today, we get a lot more investment from the customer. So anybody can do it. I'm sorry?
Do you find them Do you find that they're home during the time that you're arriving?
It's about 3/4 that we actually find people that are home. 3/4 of the residents. So of the 1,000, we might get 750 customers that are actually home, and then of that, maybe about half actually take us up and do the assessment.
These are all Mondays.
They're all Mondays. And my understanding is that the team is going to be down at the Woolley Market. That's where they're going to start on Monday. That's going to be the kickoff. I think they start at 10 o'clock. You're welcome to come down and say hello. Real quickly, everybody will be with a PSC logoed T-shirt or a shirt of some sort. They will look very professional. We've done this many times. What I'm trying to say is you should not get too many phone calls about difficult people walking the streets knocking on the door. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm trying to remember the name of the home, the organization that was in Burlington. I think they still are. They did something like that. They help people with low income make their homes more efficient for the winter. They do windows and stuff like that. I was just wondering if it was similar to that program or if they kind of worked off each other.
It's a similar program. I don't know that I don't believe there are contractors. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that organization. But it's a very similar program where we're able to provide the resources that we provide are the contractors in the area that can provide the installation or the home heating units and those types of things. I don't believe they're our contractor. Our contractor is based out of Bellevue, but it's a very similar type of program.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't know.
I can't remember either.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I have a question about the electric vehicle charging stations. Is there any talk about a pilot program in Sedro-Woolley?
I don't know that. Unfortunately, the plan has not been provided to us to look over. At least I have not seen the plan, let me put it that way. And the UTC is still looking that over and hopefully will approve it here in the next 30 days. We will probably go through some of those areas that have a high concentration of electric vehicles first from a charging station, and it's over a 5 to 6 year period. So it may not be right away, but it could be definitely in the future.
I'd also suggest for your consideration about folks that might be traveling over a mountain pass that would want to have a full charge before they did that. Sedro-Woolley would be a great place for that. I have had some questions from neighbors about, hey, it would be great if Sedro-Woolley did have charging stations, so just investigating that. Also, what is the concern about proprietary charging stations, because different manufacturers, the connection doesn't fit every car?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you about the proprietary piece of it. These particular charging stations would be PSC owned and operated.
Great.
And the hope is that they're a little bit more user-friendly for our customers, especially our customers that already have electric accounts. The hope is that we can combine the two. So if you have already are an electric customer, you own an electric vehicle, you charge, you type in maybe a password, and it automatically links to your electric account. Those are some of the ideas that we had in the plan.
That's a great way of doing it. Thank you.
And Lynn, what Carl just mentioned here too, I know that the Cascade Loop has gone out and gone electric throughout the entire loop. So if you are traveling the Cascade Loop, there is charging stations on the loop. The one thing that I think that with the charging stations is important is that we do have something here in Sedro-Woolley. It does seem to be one of the places where we haven't quite gotten up to speed on that yet. So.
Absolutely. So ironically, I would agree. Ironically, I was in Eastern Washington, just outside of the Gorge, small little resort, and they had 4 charging stations. So I don't see why we couldn't have something like that here in Sedro-Woolley. Great. Council, thank you very much for your time this evening, and we look forward to being here next week and then over the next 3 weeks.
Thank you, Lynn.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So I have on the agenda up next Helping Hands Food Bank. Rebecca? I don't see her
Rebecca's
here.
not here.
No, not here.
I think
We heard from her today at the chamber, and I'm sure what she's going to mention is that they're having their ribbon cutting at 5 o'clock on the 28th.
Yes.
So I don't know what else she might have said, but that's...
I think that's the important part.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank
Actually,
you.
I knew it yesterday because she was in our office.
So we'll go with staff reports. Chief Tucker, do you want to kick it off?
So we got our shipment of our body-worn cameras in on 4th of July, and we deployed, or we got them a little before that. Bill Chambers did an incredible amount of work to get those networked in. That took a little bit of doing to get everything so that when the officers come in, they can just plug them into the port, they download, and exactly like they're supposed to. But we deployed those on the 4th of July, and all the officers have one, and they're wearing them. We're going to start seeing how that's going to turn out for us. Hopefully that'll be a real good thing for us. We did have a sad passing on the 4th of July. One of our crime watchers, Keith Ridgely, came in to help with the parade, went home afterwards, and must have had a heart attack or something like that and passed away that afternoon. Sergeant Blunt, she manages our crime watchers, took it pretty hard, and but they had a memorial service for him and on Tuesday, and the family was very happy to see us here or see us there to wish him off. Kind of a sad day for us that day. On the 9th, we had some folks in from Phoenix Recovery to do Narcan training. That's the naloxone for officers to carry, and our officers are going to start carrying that on their person. It's kind of a twofold reason for that. We're starting to see fentanyl coming into Washington State. It's not real prevalent yet, but it's a pretty nasty opioid, and I guess our first goal with the Narcan is to keep our officers safe and our office staff if they happen to run into that in evidence or during a search or something like that. But also we're going to have it on the officers for when we get there well before the fire department, which is very rarely. Dean's pretty fast. But we did get outfitted with that, and we're starting to carry that right now. You may have heard about our double fatality accident on Saturday night. Fortunately, the State Patrol jumped right in, did all their stuff, and they're handling this. I know they put one in custody on a vehicular homicide investigation, so that's being carried out, and we gave them all assistance we could that night. We'd already had a pursuit and a couple other normal weird Sedro-Woolley things that night. So, but a pretty sad state of affairs for one family here in town right now. They lost 2 people, and another family's now got one that's facing some serious charges. And finally, we were instructed to do a little bit of left turn lane enforcement in front of Floyd's at the corner of West State and Highway 9. Went in and gave them a heads up about what we were doing prior to doing that, and then went and must have stopped 20 or 30 cars that were violating that turn. We didn't write any tickets for that. We did find a few suspended drivers that we did write tickets to. But I got to tell you, it's a weird thing to be stopping people that are illegally going to the marijuana store to talk about their illegal left turn. That's just a kind of a change in my 27 years of law enforcement. We're kind of ignoring the whole... And the guy stopped in the parking lot and said, that's kind of weird. I said, yeah, I'm not here worried about your weed, dude. It's that left turn that's getting you every time. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you. Chief Klinger?
First of all, I'll apologize if I start sneezing. Allergies are kind of taking over this evening. The burn ban for the county is putting on their modified burn ban starting this Friday, the 13th. And that really doesn't affect the city residents at all. It's more for the people outside the county. They now have to live with our burn regulations that we have all the time. Just basically shuts down their outdoor big pile burning is what they can't do anymore. If you notice, if you look to the east when you're leaving here tonight, 325 Metcalf, or 315 Metcalf, excuse me, 325 is us, yeah. But we've got it torn down, and Nathan and the crews, especially the street crews, they did a fantastic job. I wish we could hire these guys out because they do really good work. I mean, this place looks great out there. So now we're just slowly getting the rest of it coming online. I had talked at the last council meeting about our firefighter testing. We had to reschedule that, so it's coming up August 25th is when we've rescheduled it for. I was in Hawaii last week, so I didn't get a chance to get this into your council packet, but the training hub materials that we had talked about for Skagit County, where we would be going out and doing the public CPR classes and all the EMTO taps and so forth, we finally got all those documents completed. It'll be on your council docket for next council meeting, so it's coming up. And it all looks good. We've got instructors already have signed up to teach all the classes if you see fit to approve that. We did have another ambulance meeting today, and we had one, actually we had 2 today. Seems like there's been one every other day. We're still working on the response to the county's request that we look at taking over an ALS portion of the service, and we met with the other cities twice today to discuss this, and we're formulating or working on a response to the county, so that's still an ongoing process. If anybody's got any questions about it, if I can't answer them, Aaron or the mayor might be able to do so, but it's, like I said, it's still just an ongoing thing, trying to figure out if it's viable for the city to engage into that type of work. So that's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. John?
Good evening. So our consultant, Mel Foster-Longy, completed the Phase 2 environmental study at 109 Jameson Street. So that document is complete and ready for your review, so if you should choose to. It doesn't really have a lot of impact on the city itself, and it's fairly long and dry assessment. But if you'd like, at some point, I can give, if you're interested, I can give a rundown to any council members. The city has also completed our local update of census addresses for the Census Bureau. That was something we voluntarily did, which was a review of all of the census addresses that they had and comparing it to all of the addresses that we know that we have in the city, matching them up geographic points on the map through a software that they provided to us, and did that review of some 4,500 residential addresses. The work was done almost entirely by Amanda over in the finance side, because we didn't have the manpower over in BP&E to do it, although we did coordinate the project out of the planning department. So that's all been completed. Thank you to Amanda. She did an amazing job on it. And it's been submitted on time to the census, and we've received confirmation that it's been submitted. So the project's not quite done. They'll review it, and if they have any questions, they'll get back to us. And I don't really anticipate that there'll be any much follow-up to this, but it's almost done. The hard part's done. Mark's going to talk about this a little bit more, but Pace Engineering, is it Pace Engineering, our consultant that is working on our sewer study, did a urban growth area expansion sewer study. That was a required element of the urban growth area expansion that we did in 2016. So Pace completed that work, basically looked at where lines would go, if capacity of the lines, the existing lines in our plant can handle all of the new growth up in the urban growth area, and it shows that it can. Of course, we knew that going into the study and going into the urban growth area expansion, but now we have it on paper from an engineer, so it's official. So that document's been complete, and which now allows us to go fully forward with the proposed annexation north of Bassett Road. We have worked with all the property owners in that area and got enough response to have a good idea of what area is going to request an annexation. The annexation petitioners, the people that started the annexation request, now have a geographic boundary. They're working with the survey company to draw the official boundaries, meets and bounds for all the legal surveying requirements, then distributing the petition to be signed by the property owners, and then they will submit that to the city. I'll tell you more about how this process works, but the quick overview is once the city receives annexation petition, a fully signed annexation petition, we will review it and make sure that it meets all the technical standards, and then it'll go to the council for a resolution saying yes or no that the city is willing to go forward with this. If the city council passes a resolution, then it goes to the boundary review board. They get what seems like all the time in the world to complete their work on it if they even so choose to. So it kind of goes into a black hole there. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more cooperation from them than we have in the past. And once they're done, then the city council can hold a public hearing and pass an ordinance that would then accept the annexation as fully functional under any conditions. And we'll go over all the details, but those are the basic steps of the annexation process that we're well into right now. Moving on to project-related items, we had a hearing examiner hearing last Friday on a small plat Cook & Trail that will now come to the City Council once we receive the hearing examiner's recommendation. This is a project that the City Council has already approved preliminary plat for in the past. What the applicant is asking for is a modification to it, which actually is fewer residential lots than he had requested in the past. So I don't know if we want to ask that maybe we do a one read when it comes to city council next time, or just have it on the consent agenda, however the city council wants to handle it, or we can bring it as a regular item, however the city council wants to chooses to do it, just trying to make it as easy as possible for the council and the applicant. And then moving on to the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission is holding a public hearing on proposed planned residential development, that's PRD ordinance. That would be regulations for how plats can be done under certain scenarios. Planning Commission's worked on this for a long time, and whether or not they come up with a recommendation after this public hearing, we're not sure. We'll see if it's the text is close enough to what the Planning Commission hopes to find, and we'll hear it from the public too if it's ready to go forward. So that may or may not be coming to the council in the not too distant future either. At the regular Planning Commission hearing, which is next Tuesday, I believe it's the 17th at 7:30, right here.
I have a question, Madam Mayor. Hey, John, you brought up about the working with the Census Bureau and getting some sort of standardization of addresses. Out my neck of the woods, specifically on Fruitdale between Hone and Minkler, there's, in the triangle out there are neighbors having issues with getting deliveries there because they have two addresses. One's a city address and one's a county address. What kind of information can we give them of the standardization?
Are they in the city?
Yes.
Then they should use their city address.
Unfortunately, they've had issues with United States Postal Service, United Parcel Service, Federal Express, Amazon, etc. So there seems to be some disconnect. And how would you advise them to bird dog that down?
You know, whenever address is changed in the city, the Joanne in my office will send a notice to all of the affected. There's a list of entities that she sends it to. The post office, the UTC, which we had spoken about earlier, and some other various ones. So it basically makes the rounds, so they can possibly talk to Joanne and she can send a reminder to all of us.
Yeah.
Do you remember the address to this changed back in 1975 when it was annexed into the city?
Fantastic. Thanks. Thanks for the education. I'll send them to Joanne. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you, John. Lots of moving parts there. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. Fruitdale Road project's moving ahead. We are losing a little bit of time due to some quantity issues on the slide area. We're going to have to dig out about another 8 feet of the hillside to fully stabilize the road. We had anticipated part of that. Part of it's a little extra. We're looking at probably a $70,000 or $80,000 change in the overall cost of the project, which TIB will bear that pretty much, so no big issues, just time involved in it. We still have plenty of time to get the project done before October, so no issues that I see on that right now. The SR20 Township to Fruitdale Lane Widening and Sidewalk Project, as you know, was awarded. Contract's been executed with Granite Construction, same contractor that's doing the SR20 overlay project for DOT, which is a good thing. They'll be able to coordinate the work pretty well to avoid any issues with that. Pre-con for that is next Wednesday, and that should be starting shortly. David is putting the finishing touches on the design for the State Street overlay project. We're getting out pretty late with that. We were hoping we don't get a big surprise with prices, but it's possible this late in the year. Our backup plan would be not to award if it's significantly out of our budget, but we're remaining optimistic with the results from the sidewalk project. It actually came in under budget with a somewhat late bid as well. But that'll bid on the advertise on the 19th of July, and we'll be bringing it to you for possible award on the first council meeting in August. More than likely, we'll have to do a late materials on that. I just want to give you a heads up on that beforehand. The bids actually close on the 2nd, which is the day the packets are due. We'll try to get it all together for Christine, but it's probably going to have to come to you late, just to give you a heads up on that. David will roll right into the West Nelson Beatty sewer design. One thing we've already determined that's a little bit of a change from our original revised plan. We were originally going to go down to Beatty Street with a sewer from Curtis West Bennett, from Curtis to Beatty. Then we revised that to West Nelson. I think we've talked about that. Turns out PUD's got a 20-inch transmission main that the elevation is smack dab in the middle of where our line would cross on Beatty from the Nelson version of that, and so it physically won't work without having them to relocate that major transmission line. We've gone back and looked at the West Beatty alignment. That will work, and so that's what we're planning to do. David has partially completed some of the work on that already. He's not going from a dead stop, but again, it's going to be a late season bid. There may be some issues with price, but we're going to proceed as such as to get that out to bid and constructed yet this year. And I'll keep you informed as that process goes along. I know Habitat is really pushing for that. They hope to start construction on their 2 houses on Beatty this fall and have them open by July next year. And if we don't get it bid this year and built this year, that's probably going to be not achievable for sewer service on our end. We probably wouldn't finish until August or September if we started it next year. As John mentioned, PACE completed the 2016 UGA expansion report. We got results back that we pretty much expected, but those are documented in an engineering report for the county now, which allows us to move ahead with the annexation projects. PACE was in their contract. We anticipated moving into a second phase, which would be update of the rest of the collection system sewer plan, which hasn't been updated since 2005. So I'll be requesting a scope of services from them sometime in the next few weeks and having them provide that. We have some budget left in the 401 budget for that. We used part of it for the work that we just completed, and the rest will roll into the other part of the plan, and we'll carry that over into 2019 and finish it in 2019. The Jones-John Liner Trail scoping study is moving ahead. They've completed survey and right-of-way examination work and are working on sections and those kind of things. We do have a meeting with BNSF on another matter on Monday, but it will be with the same bridge engineer that I'll be talking with about the undercrossing. So we're going to take the opportunity to talk about that a little farther and move that ahead. Our little birdie inside of BNSF is telling us that we should be able to get that design for somewhere $10,000 to $20,000 range, which is significantly less than we could do it for with a consultant. And it gets them on our team, so to speak. So as I've mentioned to you, we're going to be looking to put together a contract with them to do that design work for the bridge. We'll need to fund that with local dollars, I'm assuming. We'll be able to use TBD for that. So that'll be coming up, and I'll be reporting on that again as it moves ahead. The solid waste fleet operations facility plan, the Carletti is working on. Topo survey has been completed. We've had issues with that and several of our other projects that have relied on our local surveyor just because of issues there with their workload. But that's still underway, and we expect to have some results on that by the end of the year. Swift Center Park, Aaron will probably talk more about that, but the consultant selection was done yesterday on that, and I'll let him speak more on that. But we are, as a part of the Fruitdale project, incorporating the physical things like the approach that needs to go in. We're going to put a entrance opposite Wildflower that will service the new park. It'll be a regular approach, basically like Wildflower on the other side, a little narrower, but it'll service that. We're coordinating the utilities. The sewer will be stubbed in as a part of the Fruitdale project, paid for by the 401 budget. And and we also have ordered a water service from PUD for that. So everything will be in place for that to move forward. And the same landscape architect that did the preliminary plans that you saw a few weeks ago is going to be doing the park design for that facility. So other than that, I've been assisting a little with the library things, and Aaron's, I'm sure, will talk more about that. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. Aaron?
Madam Mayor,
Oh,
I have a question for Mark. Mark, can you clarify, you said a year out before we would get a survey for the solid waste facility? Or
No.
by the end of the year, that's all?
We'll have it by the end of the year. We'll have, something to look at in terms of a plan. We were originally hoping to have that by July or August, but obviously that hasn't happened. And so, that's going to be a little later now. That's running a little behind. So.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I have a question for Mark. Mark, you're going to be meeting with Burlington Northern Santa Fe. What is the schedule of removing the tracks between Ferry and State?
That's a part of the West State Street project. We've coordinated that with them. And so as soon as we have a contractor and have a schedule for that project, we'll schedule them to do their work.
Okay.
And they'll come in and we'll do that as our contractor mobilizes, so we can do get the road patched back and passable after they remove the tracks. So that'll be done in concert there.
Do you think that's this construction year? Or?
As long as we get good bids on the overlay, that'll be this construction year.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mark.
All right, thank you. Aaron?
Well, the Washington State Potato Commission is rolling their mobile French fry unit to Sedro-Woolley's Fire Station 1 Friday the 13th from 10 to noon. So if you'd care to have a fried up potato, they're free, and they'll be handing them out in front of Fire Station 1. So it's open to the public. On the library project, of course, the council and the library board had its joint meeting here recently with the 30% design. Architects have taken a whole bunch of feedback from that meeting and have started kind of reconfiguring some of the adjacencies and reconsidering some of the exterior. So we're looking forward to seeing what that may look like as it works through the process. The city is now the owner of all of the real estate down there, including the Iron Skillet. That transaction closed formally on June 29th, and we're in the process of completing, as Mark said, the same topo survey and boundary survey work. So I had a crew out yesterday identifying locations of, manhole inverts, curbs, gutters, etc. So the 2020 engineering can do the civil plans for the new project. So we're on track. We're currently looking at a meeting that would be, I think we're talking beginning of October for the second joint City Council, Library Board, 90% design meeting. Don't have the date just yet. We had proposed the time before the October work session. We're waiting to hear back if that works for a quorum of the library board. So we'll let you know as soon as we know more. But we're looking for a date that's already a meeting date, just to make it a little bit easier to get everybody together. That's all I've got for you tonight.
Okay, thank you. Doug?
Got a couple of things for tonight. The first is, can you hear me okay?
No.
Is Doug's mic on?
Mic's on, or light's on. How's this?
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you. A few different things going on. For financial reporting, one of the things I want to do is get our financial reporting to City Council rolling out to you. We're ending our second quarter, we just did, the end of June. So we'll be closing up the books for the second quarter, and we have a new financial report we'll be sending out to you. It's going to come out to you in two different phases. The first one is going to be the general fund. It kind of has the most departments and activities in it. And and that'll include an update on where we're at budget-wise, revenue and expenditures. It'll have a section on cash and investments, and there's a plethora of other things we can add in there as well. But I'll be interested when you see that one, if there are additional items you would like to see in that report that would be helpful to you, let me know. As we get into the following quarter, we'll start expanding out into the other operating funds, including the utilities, so at least there's some methodology so you can see how we're tracking as far as budget. So I'm kind of looking forward to getting those rolled out to you. Other things we have going on, we've had, of course, finance staff is always putting the best face on for the city down at the counter downstairs and doing a great job at that. We also have some projects going on as far as assisting with cost tracking for the library project and getting that report set up and going. We're looking at starting to input the cost data into that this next week. So as we do that, we'll be able to provide that report again, just like our regular city finances. We can track the finances for the project. A couple of other projects have been costing, the potential for an ambulance service, looking at that. And then also, as you can see, we have a model that we're building and have been using for the solid waste analysis, looking at the recycling and that. So we've had a lot of modeling work going on, which is interesting to do. And that is really the basis of my report for tonight.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Judith?
Well, the only thing of interest I had was that I knew when the ribbon cutting would be, so
Perfect.
I'm done.
All right. Thank you. Jermaine?
I just wanted to thank you, Doug, for this. Awesome. I'm very visual, so it really helps. And I wasn't here. Thank you for excusing me for the last meeting. I'm sorry. But I went back to Philadelphia and celebrated a little bit of the 4th with them before coming back and celebrating here. And I just wanted to thank the city for a really great fireworks show again. I always enjoy that. I never miss it. Thanks.
Thanks, Jermaine. Brenda? All right. Thank you. Paula?
I just wanted to mention that there is the quilt show this weekend. There is fly-ins at various locations in our community out at the port. And there was so many different things that got mentioned today. I was like overwhelmed by the number of things that are happening this weekend. But please feel free to check our website if you need to find out more information. And there is more coming up. The EDASC golf tournament and various things all are happening this month.
Yeah, you do have a great list. You always provide a great list on your website, so do check it out. Okay. Carl?
Hey, thank you. I hope everyone had a great Independence Day. Really enjoyed the activities of Lager Rodeo. Some great carvers that we had. Really like to see that dinosaur win. That was amazing. Went down and, of course, visited the carnival in the ward down at the park. It seemed like everyone was having a great time and enjoying themselves. It was really a lot of good family fun down there. Still haven't caught my sockeye yet down there, but we're working on it. I haven't heard of anyone else catching a fish yet. So, some neighborhood issues have been brought up about unauthorized yard signs and on public parking strips or in city land. Folks are interested in how they remedy that. I know it's not a high priority, but folks are interested in keeping Sedro-Woolley beautiful. Also been tracking some zombie homes in the ward, and really appreciated being able to work with Aaron in getting those tracked and with compliance issues. The big thing is last night I went to Skagit Transit Center for the Skagit Transit Strategic Plan meeting. Apparently this was their last meeting that they had. There's going to be significant changes to Route 300 as being proposed, which services Sedro-Woolley. Their methodology, they're looking 3 to 5 years out. They surveyed about approximately 370 bus riders around the county. The changes with the 705, which goes out to Marble Mount, they're thinking about changing the day from Friday to Tuesday, and they're using that as a pilot project for the next 2 years to see if they can increase the ridership, else they will consider cutting the route completely. 705 does bring people from upriver into Sedro-Woolley to conduct their businesses and appointments, etc. Heard just a heartbreaking story at that meeting of folks using the food bank from Marble Mount at Concrete and not being able to get back upriver on any type of public transportation, but having to hitchhike or walk with their box of food. So that I thought was an important data point to look at. With the Route 300, they are proposing that it's no longer a one-seat trip from Sedro-Woolley to Burlington, that it will be, the 300 will be a circulatory route within Sedro-Woolley, and that the bus will no longer do its layover now at the Swift Center at Job Corps, but rather down by Walgreens at the Transit Center. Then you would have to connect to another bus that at the Transit Center to get you from Sedro-Woolley west. So as an example, if you needed to catch needed to go to Everett or to Bellingham via bus, you would now add another link into that chain. And I did ask about if they had considered starting earlier routing with the 300, because currently it starts at 6:30 at the Transit Center, which means that folks that are east of there have to find alternative ways to get to the transit centers, such as walking, bicycling, or finding a friend. We do have one Uber in Sedro-Woolley that's listed, but I don't know much more than that. But it seems like they're doing good work there on the strategic plan. I asked if they considered because they were looking 3 to 5 years out, if they were considering municipalities' growth management acts, that they could go and look at where the cities think they are going for development and for growth, and they said that was something that they had not considered. So it was interesting to be at. My concern is the outreach that Skagit Transit is having. I would like to encourage us to have a presentation by Skagit Transit because they're about to put out their draft proposal, and I think it's important that the people of Sedro-Woolley understand the ramifications of that proposal and are given the opportunity to give their input on such an important linkage that we have with transportation. And that is my report. Thank you.
So, great suggestion. I'll get in touch with them and see if I can set something up. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great report.
Just a couple quick things. I appreciate being excused from our last council meeting. I apologize. My hectic work schedule and stepping into some different roles, I just couldn't make it. And I appreciate you guys excusing me. Just a quick thank you to Assistant Chief Frank Wagner. I wouldn't often admit this publicly, but even cops have heroes, and I rolled up to a motor vehicle accident on Highway 20 and was very happy when Frank arrived so quickly. So thanks to Chief Klinger and his guys. I know you guys have been very busy. And a quick note, our friends just up the highway, the Lyman Car Show is on Saturday from 8 to 3. If you want to go out and support that, it's how they fund and take care of their cemetery up in Lyman. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Jared. So bear with me, I have a bit to do. I want to also extend thank yous. I want to extend thank you to Dottie Chandler. She was actually Lago Rodeo Committee Chair this year. She kind of stepped up when no one else was really available to do it. She took the job on and she did a great job. It was another wonderful experience. And I also want to extend a thanks to Nathan and his crew. Once again, they're our heroes. They were up at 4 a.m., or actually out on the road. They were actually here in town at 4 a.m. on July 4th, and then again on July 5th to do cleanup. So outstanding job, really. And then also to the fire and the police staff who, make it a successful and safe event. So it just goes to show that we live in a fantastic town. There's no place like Sedro-Woolley. I want to give the council a heads up regarding a meeting that we're going to have. Aaron and I met with all the department directors today, and each director laid out their greatest need for hiring and acquiring employees. Unlike our strategic meeting where there were many needs that were discussed by each department head, they selected one that was really important. We want to go back and take a look at that and come up with some possible funding options. We have asked Doug to put together some strategies. So what we are looking to do is before a council meeting, so we'll bring in some box dinners. We'll have a meeting prior to that, a special meeting prior to one of our meetings. And we're just waiting on Doug. As you heard him speak, there's a lot of things that he's putting together right now, but we're going to have him put together that, and when he does, we'll schedule a time where we can get together and compile the information and actually make some hard decisions. We're going to have some hard decisions that we're going to have to make. Some very difficult, challenging decisions. And then one last thing, I would like to extend an invitation. The Skagit PUD water treatment plant in the watershed has once again put out an invitation. They're going to be hosting a tour for the elected officials. I think, didn't we do it, Jermaine, last year? There were those of us who did it last year. It was really a great tour, very informational. They are specifically targeting those who are newly elected officials. So if you have never done it, or if you are newly elected and would like to participate in it, the dates that they are suggesting is either August 7th, 8th, or 9th, which is a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And if you can get back with Aaron regarding that, he'll set that up. Anyway, just let him know if you want to do that. And then one last thing. I'd like to invite the council. I mentioned back in May about the civil discourse event that is happening. Every month they've had one. We're going to have one here in August. We're going to be hosting one. This month it is over in Anacortes. That is on the 19th. It's at the Anacortes Public Library from 6:30 to 8:30. So just want to put that out there. If you have any questions or would like more information, I'll be happy to answer that for you after the meeting. So that is it. Now we are going to move into public comment. I will start public comment at 7:57. Is there anyone who is interested in coming up, giving public comment? Oh, okay, Dennis? Oh, okay. Okay.
My name's Dennis O'Neill. I reside at 109 Talcott Street, Sedro-Woolley. I was looking at the paper where I get most of my news, and in the last year or so, it seems like we don't put anything on the agenda. Every other town does. People in town know what's going to be discussed. If it's of interest to them, they can come. It's not in our paper. If we don't do that, evidently, there's somebody that doesn't have enough time, or whoever's supposed to do it, or there's somebody that's, they're supposed to be doing that. It's not there. And I know you must have the agenda, because a lot of these things, like the one tonight, on the recycling here, put down here on the, because it's significant change. I think people would like to know that. And 45 days notice to implement, so he's looking for direction from the city council tonight. Somebody at the council must have been aware of some of this, and it would have been nice to have it in the paper so people that pay these costs have some idea and can come down here and ask questions. If I know you're going to start doing or have started on your city meetings, but and I know nobody up there normally responds to questions from the audience here, and that's hopefully I'll give them a chance to get some direct answers. But it seems to me like everything comes in a rush when it does show up here. You got to do it right now. You don't have any more time. As you comment on the first reading, you can't comment on things on the first reading. But this doesn't even. This is I think this basically is the first and last reading. I don't know. It doesn't say. So I guess the question is, if you put the agenda out there, you might get some feedback from people, might come up with some ideas, and it just hasn't been done for the last year or so, year and a half. It used to be the agenda was there, and I thought it was almost legally that you had to do it. The other cities do it, but Sedro-Woolley doesn't. Somebody doesn't have the time to do it, or it just gets lost in the shuffle. The other thing about this recycling, again, I don't know if I'm supposed to be talking about it tonight, but you do have that tax on domestic water sales that isn't going to do anything with domestic water sales, except it's a fund that's sitting out there when emergencies come up. This is a middle of the year deal here on this. Doesn't sound like a lot of money to raise $1.33 a month, which is probably the simplest way of doing it rather than taking it out of the fund that comes in handy when you have emergencies. But I just threw that out because it's sitting out there and it's not going. I don't know what the purpose of domestic water sales was, the tax on it. I'd like to know, and I'd like to know how it got pushed through because I don't see the purpose of it. Anyway, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dennis. Anyone else?
I would just mention that our city council receives the agenda and the packet at the exact same moment as the public and the newspaper does, Dennis. So I'm not sure what the newspaper is or isn't reporting, but it's provided to these elected officials at the exact same moment as you can get it and the press can get it.
Did they ask for it or did you send it out?
Who? Well, it's provided on our website, so that's how the council gets it. Oh, and it's faxed to the newspaper as well.
Is that how the other cities send it in on your site? So it's the newspaper's responsibility to go off?
Well, we also fax it to the newspaper. So they get it in two different ways, but we're not responsible for their reporting. I guess I just want to make clear that the information is out there. The press is aware of this topic. They called me today to find out what's going on. They said, well, I hope you'll be there tonight. We could meet before the meeting and talk about it. No, I can't make it. We'll talk tomorrow. So, we are a city without a daily newspaper that covers us.
I'm sorry to keep talking about this, but when does it get sent in here? Is that enough time to get it in the paper? I think it comes out on Monday.
Well, our packets are generally posted on Friday.
All right. If there's no one else, I will close public comment at 8:01. And we are on to new business. And who is taking this? Is that you, Aaron?
Well, we'll take a team approach.
Okay.
So what we're looking for tonight is, just as Dennis stated, we're looking for direction. Final action, just to be clear, is not tonight. Final action ultimately is the adoption of one or more ordinances that will require one or more readings. So this is really a continuation of a conversation that the council had at a prior meeting when we identified the issues coming up with changes in the international recycling market. And of course, in our case, the specific unfortunate timing of the big changes from China, January of 2018, and the expiration of our current recycling contract, August 30 of 2018. So we're one of the first cities to get to bear the brunt of the new rules, and that's really what prompted the conversation about what do we do about it. So you should have on your days some colorful sheets that Doug has generated. There's 4 of them. And I'll just take a minute to orient you to those sheets. They basically have the scenarios that are in the memo in dollars. And what's fun about this is you can see on the first page, so they're identical sheets with just different scenarios. So on the first page, you can see 2017 is on the left side. That's the budget as well as the current tonnage that the city takes over the scales at both the transfer station and also through our recycling operation. In the middle, you see the variables that Doug calculated with resulting impacts. So the very top, just for example, we're dealing with actually 4 different issues here, and that's what makes this kind of complicated. We've got the recycling issue, which is the pressing issue of the day. We've got the Skagit County tipping fee increase that moved through the SWAC, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, today and is being advanced to the Governance Board for possible recommendation and action. So that's the tipping fee increase. We've got, we're just a few months away really from the new year when we would normally address a cost of living increase for the utility, like all of our utilities. And then fourth, one of the positions that has been requested in the city is a position for the solid waste utility. So 4 separate factors, and these scenarios kind of capture all 4 of those. So the first one's just what's the cost for the tipping fee change? And in this case, it's both tipping fee changes. It's the recycling going from $42.50 a ton to $140.95, which is an estimate because we haven't actually negotiated a contract or put out for proposals yet. That cost, you can see, we generate about 898 tons a year. Current cost $38,000. Estimated new cost $88,000, or a 231% increase in our cost to dispose of recyclables. On the solid waste side, we're just over 6,000 tons a year. Currently, we pay $88 a ton, and the projected increase from the county is going to run that up to $96 a ton, generating an increase of $49,000, or just over 9% on that cost. And if you look down into the middle boxes, you can see, well, what's that actually mean for the utility? Well, that means that rates would go up on garbage by 2.8%, on recycling by 47%. If you combine them, your aggregate rate increase would be just over 7%. And then what's really fun is if you look at page 2, the orange column is what we're currently paying. So this really brings it down to the individual customer level. I'll use myself as an example. I have a 68-gallon toter, so I'm currently paying $25.86 a month plus $2.82 a month for my recycling. Under this scenario, which only addresses the county tipping fee and the new recycling costs, I would be paying a new charge of $26.58 for my garbage and $4.15 for my recycling, or an aggregate increase of $2.05 per month. So 72 cents more for garbage and $1.33 for my recycling, $2.05 a month. And if you flip to the next one, everything's the same except we add in one new employee. You can see that bumps the rate increase from the estimated 7% to 12%, and using again me as an example, it bumps me from the $2.05 cost increase to $1.99 plus $1.46, which I guess would be about $3.45 a month. So that's an additional $1.40 at my house to add the FTE. And we don't actually know what measure of inflation we'll be recommending be used for rolling into 2019, but we put in a bogey of a 3% COLA. That'll be the next example. So tipping fee for garbage, tipping fee for recycling, plus an employee, plus the COLA. This is kind of the full package, 15% rate increase. And the impact, again, using me, is $2.77 plus $1.55. So now I'm running whatever that is, $3.77 plus 55 cents. What's that, about 4.25 ish, 4.30, 4.30. So 4.32. So that's that example. Then the last example is, well, what if we stopped recycling? What does that look like? And it's a slightly harder one to compare because there have to be certain assumptions. And again, I'll use me as an example. We currently sell recycling at a fixed rate of $2.82 per month, and it doesn't matter how much recycling you do. So in garbage land, we'll sell you cans by volume, which we pay to get rid of by weight, which is a tricky model. So we'll sell you volume, we'll pay by weight. So sometimes if you fill it with styrofoam, Leo's doing great. If you dump concrete in there, that's also not allowed under our rules. But if you double black bag it, we don't know, and we're not doing so great. So you know what I'm talking about. But on the recycling side, we'll actually bring you a second can. So at my house, I've got a 68 on the garbage and 2 96s on recycling. Part of that's because that allows me to be lazy and not flatten everything as much as I could. But, you know, we do that. So when you look at this eliminate recycling scenario, you see the rate impact's about 2.8%. It's actually a negative number. If you go to the net change on the blue, for me, you would see me going up in garbage by 2.8%, 72 cents, but you could subtract $2.82 a month, so my rate increase is actually a negative $2.10. But I got to get rid of my recycling now. So either I'm packing it up in the back of my car and driving it to to Leo, where it's going to be separated by type, or out to the transfer station, or I've got to get a bigger can and stick it in the garbage. And so that's the challenge with this one, in terms of, you can use me as an example on all of these. If you use me as an example on eliminate recycling, I think I've got to at least go up 1 can size, which means, and I'm also going to be out aggressively flattening garbage and recycling to make it fit. That means I go from $26.58 to $35.51, because now I'm paying for the larger volume can. So at a system level, this one would appear to save money. At an individual level, I'm not sure that it does, because you've got to get rid of the high volume items. But that also points out we've got some issues in how we've built the model for funding our solid waste utility, in terms of the sell by volume, pay by weight. So the last item I guess I'd mention is timing. The only really pressing issue right now is the recycling question. If we're going to continue to do curbside recycling, and we're going to see that rate go from $42.50 to $140 or more, we're also going to have to change a little bit of the recycling mix, as the recyclers are more picky, in particular, about what they'll take and run through their MRF, their materials recovery facilities. That issue we need to resolve really probably in the next couple council meetings. The FTE, the COLA, those are not issues that need to be resolved outside of the standard budget process for implementation in January. And the county garbage tipping fee, the current recommendation of the SWAC is that would go into effect in June of 2019. So there's the potential here for 3 different steps to affect rates based upon costs coming into the utility at those times. There may also be a preference by the council in aggregating those, doing some averaging based upon time, and having the rates go into effect somewhere in the midpoint. So we under-collect a little bit at the beginning, over-collect a little bit in the middle, and ultimately collect the same amount overall. That's a question for you on the timing. And then I know the council's utilities committee met, and I'm sure that there may be some more information that the committee would like to put in. What's that?
I'll address the committee when you're ready.
Whenever you're ready.
Well, when we met with Leo and Doug, one of the things that basically our utilities committee really felt strongly about is that eliminating curbside recycling was really a bad option. Those who weren't present, I did talk with later, but we would definitely not recommend that one. To delete it as a mandatory recycling requirement was also not such a great option in talking to Doug about it. Because if, let's say Julia lives next door to me and she doesn't do it and I do, my rate's going to be a lot higher than if we're both paying the same rate. And so we felt that as far as the city residents would go, that it was fair to everybody to pay the same rates, except for when you have 5 kids, then you have to pay more.
That's what Mayor Anderson always said.
Yeah. But we're basically going to probably, recommend that we do go with the increased recycling rates to cover the increased cost of disposal. We believe that's the best option available to us at this time. And certainly we're willing to listen to public input on it. And, we do have time to make that decision, but August 30th is not that far away. And we were the ones who kind of addressed Leo's bringing up, needing additional staffing. And partly that's why that's in your packets as well. We kind of wanted to do everything as an aggregate, but in discussion with some of the other people here on the council, it may not be the right time to add that into this, but that does mean that we may be having to ask our citizens to accept a rate increase at the 1st of January, correct? And then again, when we look at the overall general budget. So does the rate increase on the recycling go into effect on August 30th?
It'll be September 1st.
September 1st, okay. So that's the Utilities Committee's recommendation. And certainly it's for all the rest of the council to look at and to address over the next few meetings. And certainly the public input on that is welcome as well.
What's the council's pleasure in terms of the recycling component? Because that's really the direction that I'm looking for, is do you want us to pursue the RFP and begin negotiating a disposal contract for recycling that we can get back to you, as well as the preparation of ordinances that would implement a rate increase for September 1 on recycling? And then secondarily, do you want to just do that now, or do you want to bundle a bunch of it together now? In terms of the other issues, my preference, incidentally, would be to wait on the other issues until we do the budget, so we can look at that as part of the total citywide issues.
Okay, I think Mark had brought up that currently the full-time employee could wait. Is that correct?
Yeah, that should wait, as Aaron said, until
all right.
time.
The other thing is that I really feel like getting this list out to the public has got to happen, because all these things that are now going to not be okay are huge.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I know in my own household, I'm sitting there going, no, you can't put that in there. No, you can't put that in there. But that's because I've already read this list. And so I think that we definitely need to get that out to the public. And yes, I would recommend that we do negotiate whatever we need to do to get the best rate we can.
I know, I understood that was your recommendation. I guess I'm looking for the rest of the council as a whole for some direction.
I agree with that. And I do also agree with getting that out, maybe in our mailers and our billing. I mean, because, especially, and I mean, repetitively and on the website and on the Facebook page and
Right. I think the big change, correct me if I'm wrong, Leo, really the only change on there is on the plastics. We're now not taking anything other than number 1, number 2.
Yeah.
The other items have always been rejects in the MRF. They're just being more stringent, and contamination is resulting in total rejects of loads is kind of what's shifted in this.
Yeah.
But they are still going to take the glass, which...
I was actually surprised to see, I didn't know that I had started throwing it away. So now I didn't even know that we're still taking glass.
Yeah, that surprised me too, given the conversation that we had 3 years ago about whether we would discontinue glass early, kind of getting ahead of the curve. I don't know how long that's going to last. It still is a huge contaminant for cardboard, as I understand it, paper.
Madam Mayor, I have a couple questions. One, what do we see for a potential staff impact for the change in allowable materials? And I guess anybody, Leo or Mark or whoever in the room, but I mean, is there? I just don't want us to end up in a position like that we are expecting staff to sort through or try to clean up these loads. I guess what's our...
We don't do that, so I don't anticipate there would be staff impact other than at the finance side and receiving phone calls and providing information, and then on the driver's side, when they see a particularly unrealistic load, they'll tag that, so they have to get out and tag it, which generally results in an angry call to finance. Why didn't you take my recycling? It was only 28 dirty diapers on top of the clean bottle at the bottom. That kind of a call, and then some trips back and forth. But I don't expect we're going to get any more of that than we have today. Do you, Leo?
Leo,
Hey, Leo, would you mind taking the mic? Thanks.
Thank you, Leo.
We'll have to do, we have a big education program plan where we'll send these flyers out multiple times. We'll most likely be handing them out to the citizens if we see a contamination issue and stuff like that. We're going to have about 60 days worth of educating everybody. So, and Waste is familiar with this too. So we've been talking with them, and they're going to understand it at the start, but it's going to get cracked down fairly quickly. So that's what we're planning on the list. The one thing Aaron didn't mention I wanted to say was the septic packaging. So that is one that we're currently accepting, which is like your juice cartons and stuff like that. Those will not be allowed. So that is, but it's a very low percentage of them. So that's going to be another one we'll have to really educate people on.
I was going to say, too, I remember last year for Lago Rodeo, when I was going through and sifting through, I only found like maybe 1% of the recyclable was actually not recyclable. But I feel like people were trying to make the effort because a lot of it was like straws. They probably figured straws were. And I think that's a big plastic straws. They think they are recyclable, and they're not, which is, I think I found mostly straws.
Yeah, I think you're seeing some trending right now in the way that they're outlawing those single-use plastic type of materials, and I think we're going to see a lot more trending coming up here. I mean, I think Seattle's doing it now, and I think it's coming this way, so might be something in the future.
Yeah. Put in the paper.
Yeah, kind of along those lines, we actually have somebody who's coming to the next council meeting. She's going to do a presentation on plastic bags and what that means to eliminate them. So, yeah.
Plastic bag law around here. Okay, well, that would be excellent. Our recommendation would be for people to take them back to the stores with them, but of course.
I'm sorry. I was interested that Food Pavilion will take any plastic bag, including the ones that your newspapers come in. So there's no reason for them to be floating around anywhere.
Yeah, and you can really stack those in with one another and
I think
take them back.
I know at Fred Meyer's they would use those for decking. They use those to do the decking material.
There's all sorts of programs that they have with that, but decking is a popular one.
So getting back to that, go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah. I'm just wondering if it might be possible long term to get like a label, a sticker to go on the recycle. that would outline the new requirement?
Certainly, a sticker. That's a very good idea. Thank you, Brenda. Yes, we can get a sticker and have them sized up for the cans and start placing them. It'll take us a little bit, and we're limited on our time right now, so we'll do our best to do what we can.
See people getting this list in the mail and whoops, I lost the list. But if it's right there on the can.
Yes, yeah, no, that's a great idea. We'll do that, and maybe we'll make a card handout, so when they make a error in putting some recycling in, it'll be this list again in a card form saying please. So.
Don't you send out a schedule though?
We do at the end of the year, and that'll have all of our new stuff.
Right.
I'm already in the design phase of it, and it should be done here shortly. We'd like to have it out before the Christmas and holidays happen.
Okay.
Thank you,
Any other questions for Leo?
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
So you're looking for direction. So what is it the council would like to do? But he's looking for direction regarding recycling.
Well, I would like to see us look at, I guess, the option with, I guess, kind of packet number 2, because one, if my outlook on it is if we know that we're going to be looking at the FTE, that why not just make the rate change all at once and not have a rate change, now and a rate change in 6 months and then a rate change, let's just, if we know that that's the direction we're going, let's just make the rate change now.
Yeah, so the only concern I have with that is, as the mayor mentioned, in follow-up to the strategic retreat, there are a number of positions that are on the table for possible requests that could be funded by about, 8 different methods, including utility rates or utility taxes. And it seems like the council should see all of those together so you can weigh, at the end of the day, if you've preloaded one, then you may or may not hire the new police officer that's requested or the new planner or whatever it is, because you've already spent that effort. All of them ultimately cost the ratepayers or taxpayers somehow. So it's certainly the council's pleasure, but you're talking about doing something in August, and then we'll have another conversation for January 1 rates that would be for other departments besides solid waste. So it's just a timing question.
Because changes are coming.
Well, right, I get that. But I mean, obviously, if, the rate change, we have a couple meetings, then we need to have the discussion as far as the staffing requests that were made to you and the mayor, in a timely manner then.
For sure.
That's what I was talking about, that we are going to have a meeting doing that, where you will have opportunity to see exactly what is laid out and what the funding options are. Yeah. Right. We are going to do that. That needs to be done. You need to see it.
That's what I mean. Let's do it now. Let's get that done so when we can, we can make these changes, and it's not just constant rate changes.
Yeah, no, and I don't disagree with that. I guess the issue is the budget process.
Right.
So the staffing conversation will necessarily happen as part of the 2019 budget, which we can't pull back too much. So we can certainly gin up the data that you need to have the conversation about staffing, but I can't imagine how the council could get to a decision point in the absence of the overall budget, because there's just, the budget is, whether it's a buffet with a plate of food, there's only so much room, or a scale that balances, whatever your metaphor, at the end of the day, it's going to be through an adopted budget for the entire city that these things happen. So
right, I understand that.
So I just want to be clear for everyone that doesn't understand TLAs or 3-letter acronyms. FTE is full-time equivalent?
Yeah, 1 employee.
Okay, and COLA is cost of living adjustment, correct? Mm-hmm. All right, and I'm just confused by, I need further information, Aaron, on your example of hiring a police officer out of a utility rate?
Well, what I'm suggesting is that a police officer would not be a utility rate, but could be a utility tax. It all ends up at the bottom line of the utility bill and or a utility bill or a property tax statement. So what I'm saying is the way I would look at it if I was in your shoes is if you want to hire, let's say, 4 FTEs for next year, which I don't know what you'll want to do, but if you do that, we'll be able to total up the cost of those employees and what that impact is to an individual resident, and to do one first means you'll have already spent some level of capacity of comfort that you may have in raising a tax or fee burden on the community.
Sounds good. May I ask Leo a question? Leo, when do you need this FTE? Thank you.
I believe that it's just being responsible to the public if we did wait, just to see what the options are.
We've not had enough discussion.
We haven't had any discussion regarding it, and I think that's important to do that. And I think it would be irresponsible to go about doing hiring here or hiring there without really looking at the budget and how that's going to impact.
Right, and my point was that has been taken out of context by multiple people, is that we were asked by the staff for a direction that we would like more information on, and I would like more information on the options that were presented to us tonight, so we can make that decision. I'm not saying to make the decision tonight.
And what I said is, we're going to be doing that. We're going to be meeting and doing it.
Right, but it keeps getting brought up that it would be irresponsible. Yes, it would be irresponsible to make a decision tonight, but I want more information, and that's the direction that this council person would like to see.
We do it.
Let's make it happen.
Aaron, do you have enough information to go forward with?
Yeah, I think the main question I had is on the recycling. It sounds like the council would like to move forward with maintaining residential curbside recycling. So my next step is to go out and find out how much it will actually cost and draft an ordinance that would address those rates. You know, another possible scenario, if there's a concern about multiple rates happening in short sequence, would be for us to not raise the rates for recycling on September 1, delay that till January 1, and just accommodate that through a slightly larger rate increase. So, if there's an interest in not having a series of rate increases, because that really just becomes a council policy question about how do you want to deal with those costs.
I would like to see that option.
And we could afford to wait until January 1st? We can afford to wait that long?
Well, ultimately, we need to get the dollars. Our solid waste utility is currently not, super robust. We run a very lean operation down there, so there's not a whole bunch of cash sitting around.
So do you have everything you need then?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
Okay. So, let's see. Does anybody have any questions regarding informational items that they want to ask the staff while we're here? How about good of the order? Okay. Okay, so we are going to move into executive session to consider the minimum offering price for the sale of real estate under RCW 42-30-1101C. Okay, we are back from executive session. It is 9:01, and if there's no more discussion, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. We are adjourned.